All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. And in today's episode, we are talking about treadmill incline workouts for mountaineering training. And specifically, we're going to be exploring 8 different types of workouts a mountaineer can do on the treadmill to help improve their fitness and their endurance for the mountains. Now, the reason I want to talk about this today is this is a topic that has been coming up quite a bit for my hikers and my mountaineers, in the sense that this time of year, people, depending on where they are, they're either going through a very hot summer and struggling to get outdoors and get out for long hikes or long runs in the heat, or on the flip side, a lot of people are dealing with the opposite of that, or a very cold and snowy winter and struggling to get out for long runs or long hikes outdoors. And a lot of people have been looking for different options that they can do indoors to help their training tick over. And that's where the treadmill comes in. Now, typically, treadmill workouts for mountaineers will really be used in 2 different situations. Number 1, as I literally just said before, weather. If you're in the middle of winter and getting outdoors is a little bit tricky, treadmill workouts can be great. Or if you're in the middle of summer and getting out in the stinking hot heat is just not doable, this can be great. The same thing for if you're dealing with a huge amount of rain or whatever it may be, the treadmill can just give us different options here. The other situation a lot of mountaineers will use treadmills for is just pure convenience, in the sense if you've got a treadmill at home, that gives you the option where you can just step on, do some simple workouts without having to move too far. Or if you've got a gym at work or a gym locally and you're like, I just want to go in there and do some sessions or whatever it may be, the treadmill can be leveraged very effectively. Now, to be very clear from the get-go, no mountaineer, regardless of how hot the summer is, how cold the winter is, or whatever it may be, should be doing all of their work, all their training on the treadmill and all of their cardio on the treadmill. And working on the treadmill is never going to be as good as actually getting out for a trail run or getting out for a hike or getting out on natural stairs or hills. But if we are in a situation where it's just more convenient, more practical, even more safe to use, it's definitely something we can leverage. So with that being said, I want to talk you through 8 different types of workouts we can use on the treadmill, which is going to be a combination of walking-based workouts and running workouts. Some of them may sound pretty basic, but I just want to talk through these options, give a few words of advice, and talk through how we're going to go. So, treadmill incline workout number 1, and this is the most basic one of them all, is just the long, steady walking session. Now, essentially, this session is designed just to be a long duration, low intensity session. And essentially, this is just a replacement if a long walk or a long hike is just not doable for you at the moment. This isn't an exact replacement because you're not going to be getting the different terrain or whatever it may be. But if that's what we need to fill in our week and we're limited from going outside, this is kind of what we work here. And specifically what we're trying to develop with this session is aerobic capacity and maybe a bit of pack tolerance as well. Now, how we do this, very simple. You're going to put a moderately weighted pack on. When I say moderately weighted, that means just something that isn't too much of a challenge initially. You can feel it on the back, but it's not slowing you down or whatever it may be. You're going to choose an amount of time that you think you can last on the treadmill, and this is going to be length, so as long as you possibly can realistically. We're going to set it as a moderate incline, so anywhere from maybe 7 to 10, maybe all the way up to max incline, depending on how you go. And then essentially you're just going to walk for that duration at low intensity. So low intensity, if you're using breathing measures, just at nose breathing. If you're using heart rate zones, just at zone 2. And just walk and cruise and accumulate that time. Very simple, but does the job. Now, a few tips for this. If you are looking at using this as a replacement for your hiking or longer walking during the week, one thing to be really clear on is you're never, in all honesty, going to replicate the distance of the time with your hiking. Because if you're going out for training hikes, it's pretty realistic to go out and do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, even 9, 10 hours worth of hiking because it's enjoyable. We're out in nature. We're having a good time. But the thought of doing 4 hours on the treadmill walking, nah, no one's going to do that. And the only time anyone will be doing these crazy marathon sessions is if they're just before a trip and all of a sudden they can't go outside. But 99% of situations, replicating your distance and your time isn't going to happen. So when you're choosing a workout time for this particular workout, what I typically recommend is just asking yourself, How long do you realistically think you can go? Not before you get tired, but before you get absolutely bored. What is that cutoff on boredom? Because we don't want these workouts being an absolute chore. We don't want it being the worst thing in the world. How long can you last? Is that 2 hours? Is that 3 hours? What can you do? And just cap it there. And then on top of that, these are still pretty boring because it's just on the treadmill. So what I typically recommend my mountaineers is just get a movie or get a TV show downloaded and just watch it as they go through. Because you don't need to think during these workouts. It's literally just cruise along, easy go. Now, the other tip for this one is if you are doing a long session on the treadmill, so you're doing 2 hours, 3 hours, or whatever it may be, just doing the same incline for that entire time, sometimes can be a little bit uncomfortable. The feet can start getting a bit uncomfortable, the calves get uncomfortable, whatever it may be. Not ideal. So if you are doing one of these multi-hour sessions, I typically recommend just adjust the incline as you go through. So maybe take it, from every 5 minutes, change 2% up or down or whatever it may be. Or a lot of treadmills, or at least more modern treadmills, will have these kind of like hill sessions on there where it'll automatically change different hills as you go through. That's the type of thing we want, just variation. Again, it's not going to be exactly the same as like the undulating terrain you'd get on a real trail, but just gives a bit of variation. Now, for progression for this, because we always want to be making sure we are progressing, especially if we have to leverage this over a summer or over a winter or over, even a month. For progression, each time you do this, if you are already maxing out the time that you can survive without getting bored, I would say either add in a little bit extra pack weight and just slowly load that up, or even just try to do a bit of higher average incline. So over the period of your walk, just trying to have a little bit more incline. Very, very simple. That session is kind of what a lot of people naturally fall into, but first and foremost. Now, incline treadmill workout number 2 is a heavy, slow climb. Now, this particular workout is essentially supposed to replicate an outdoor hill session or a pack-loaded outdoor hill session. So if you can't get outdoors and can't reach a hill, can't reach a set of stairs where you can load up your heavy pack, this is kind of what falls in. Now, to be clear, this is not going to be exactly the same, as we're not going to get any exposure to the downhills, and the incline is going to be a little bit different, but it can be useful if needed. The idea behind this workout is we're going to be developing muscular endurance in the legs and also create and practice the ability for us just to manage sustained output on long climbs. So how do we do this? Very, very simple. Essentially, you're going to load up a pack very heavy. So this is a heavy thing. This is a workout where we're trying to kind of almost turtle up. We're weighing ourselves down and we're getting challenging. So that's going to change from person to person, but we're loading it up pretty heavy. We're going to set the incline up to max, and then we're just going to climb for the duration of time. Usually 40, 60, maybe up to 90 minutes for this session, but we want heavy. Now, for intensity, we're going to either sustain nose breathing, or again, if you're using a heart rate monitor, just sustain zone 2 for this. Now, a few tips for this workout. As much as this can be a good option if you're stuck indoors, one thing you need to be aware of, and you probably will be aware of pretty quickly, is most commercial treadmills are not going to have enough incline to replicate a really solid hill climb. Most commercial treadmills go up to like 15% incline, which can be a challenge, but it's not going to be quite what you're faced in the mountains. If you're lucky enough to have like a super high incline, which goes up to 30%, awesome, use that. But most people aren't going to have access to that. But in this situation, if we have to lean on a treadmill to do this incline work, beggars can't be choosers, and you have to do what you can do to make do. So you can either just do the 15%, just load it up heavier and just really, really get a good workout. Or if you kind of feel that's still a little bit easy, one strategy I have used to good effect with other people is what we call pre-fatiguing, where essentially before you hop on the treadmill, you just do some simple exercises to ultimately just pre-fatigue the muscles before you get on the treadmill, to get them burning, to get them tired, to just cook them out a little bit. So when you actually get on the treadmill and hitting that incline, it's easier to kind of get that burn of endurance work. And that sort of burn of the muscle where we're just holding that and sustaining that and working through that for the entire time. So, for example, a really, really simple option you may do here, if you're like, hey, I'm loading up the pack heavy, I've got the treadmill max incline, it still feels a little bit easy. What you might do before you hop on the treadmill, you may do 20 1 1/4 body weight squats, where you're doing one squat, but then do a little quarter pulse at the bottom and do 20 of those. And then you may do 20 reverse lunges on each legs, whether body weight or loaded up. And then you may do another 20 1 1/4 squats, and just lots and lots and lots of repetitions just to get those quadriceps a little bit cooked out, get them tired. So when you start the treadmill session immediately after, you can kind of feel that fatigue there. This isn't perfect, but it can work. And obviously, choosing exercise, you can do 1,000,001 different things, but the idea is just burning out those muscles prior. Now, another tip for this particular workout is if you are doing this and say you've set yourself 60 minutes, but you get through 30 minutes on the max incline, you're like, you know what, the legs are getting too tired too quickly, then you have a couple of different options. Number one, you could say, you know what, I'm going to do the 60 minutes of this workout, but my legs are cooking out, so I'm just going to reduce the incline slightly. And I may vary between 15%, like that max incline, and 10%, and change that every 5 minutes or so. You know, it's not perfect. In an ideal world, we would just stick with the same incline, max incline, just overload that particular challenge, but that's doable. Or the other options, you could even turn this into intervals, and you could set say I'm doing 8 minutes of climbing, 2 minutes of rest, and do that 6 times. Either option works fine. Now, for progression for this one, really, really simple. Just each week, we just want to add a bit of extra pack weight. Load that up, get a little bit heavier. If you do max out your pack, or if you're in a gym that doesn't allow you to bring a pack in, which some gyms do, and you've maxed out your weight vest, then you can either add a little extra time and just add an extra 10 minutes of climbing each time, or add an extra set of that pre-fatiguing stuff and just do that another time and cook you out. So that's our heavy incline climb. Now, workout number 3 for our treadmill incline workouts is a breathing control workout. Now, this is a good option if you are looking at introducing just a bit of intensity to your cardio and to your aerobic sessions. And also if you need to practice breathing control. So the ability to control your breathing through different levels of intensity, different levels of difficulty. The idea behind this particular workout is what we're going to do. We're going to take these walking incline sessions we do and going from just doing this low, steady aerobic capacity stuff, we're going to start exposing the body to some slightly higher intensities, but in a way that's going to be practicing maintaining and sustaining higher intensities. So not just doing 20, 30, 40 seconds where you're just doing that really short, sharp hip, but we're doing multiple minutes at a time. So getting the body used to dealing with that. On top of this particular workout is practicing this skill of basically bringing our breathing back down under control while we're still moving. So what I mean by that is a lot of mountaineers do struggle if they're climbing, and they realize, oh my gosh, my breathing is getting a bit quick, getting a bit out of control. A lot of mountaineers really, really struggle actually adjusting their pace, adjusting their breathing and bringing that down to a sustainable level, and they need to stop. And they need to stop and have a minute or two, catch the breath and go. So this teaches and practices that skill. Now, how do you do this workout? Very, very simple. You're going to hop on an incline anywhere from 10 to maybe 15%. You're going to climb at nose breathing pace or zone 2 pace for 3 minutes, just cruising along for 3 minutes. The next 3 minutes, you're going to bump up the pace. You're going to intentionally push the speed of your walking. It doesn't have to be a run, doesn't have to be crazy, but you're pushing the speed with the intention of getting the breathing a bit out of control. Getting the breathing to that stage where you can't maintain that nose breathing. Just getting a little bit of huff and puff. It's not like a max intensity session. It's not like a jacking up to zone 5 and sustaining that or whatever it may be, but it's just getting a bit out of breath. Do that for 3 minutes, then go back to nose breathing. Then we're repeating this. 3 minutes nose breathing, 3 minutes quicker breathing. On, off for the period of time you're going to go. Now, tips for this particular workout. When you're doing this, you will notice you can't immediately go between the two breathing. By the time you get to the 3 minutes of quicker breathing, you're not going to instantly snap down to that lower intensity, even if you even if you reduce the speed. But the idea behind this is you reduce it as quickly as possible. So when you're doing these nose breathing intervals, you may start that interval really out of breath. The first 30 seconds may not be doable to get to nose breathing, but then you can pull it down from here. If you do find this is a little bit difficult and you're just out of breath and you're just not recovering, then you need to adjust your speed, meaning the slower intervals need to be slower and just really, really, really pull back the speed. Number 2, I'd recommend concentrating on abdominal or diaphragmic breathing throughout this. Diaphragmic breathing deep into the diaphragm, feel the belly expand. Really, really, really valuable breathing technique. Definitely worthwhile practicing that here. If you're not, don't know how to do that, just go onto YouTube, type in diaphragmatic breathing or abdominal breathing. A bunch of tutorials will come up. For the slow sections, I usually say even if you were doing heart rate training and using zone 2 or whatever it may be, practice nose breathing here. It can be a really, really nice skill to practice in this situation. And then for the fast sections, just breathe however you want. Doesn't really matter. For progression, each week you do this, you can either just go a bit quicker in those quicker intervals, you can add an extra interval, or you could even introduce a bit of pack weight each week. Any option works fine. Workout number 4, and the last walking-based workout for this, is backwards walking on the incline. Now, this can be a good option as a warm-up or a finisher after other workouts, especially for mountaineers who struggle with a bit of knee discomfort. Now, you've probably come across this before on social media because this type of stuff got really, really, really popular like a couple of years ago, and every person under the sun was talking about backwards walking and backwards walking on the incline and all of that. To be clear, if you've come across this or you see stuff about this, the majority of the claims and the information out there around backwards walking on the incline are either absolutely overhyped and people just just talking about it like it's the best thing in the world, or they're just made up. Like a lot of people are just saying stuff which doesn't really have a huge amount of evidence. Now, the main benefits of this type of workout in the mountaineering context is what we're going to be looking at this is we can challenge the quads and the calves in a very, very unique way. We can develop endurance through these areas. We can challenge it and challenge a few ranges of motions, a few really, really good things, but while at the same time minimizing stress through the knees and the ankles. So if you are someone who struggles with knee pain and you struggle to do certain movements or certain training and get load through your quads and load through your calves to help that, this can be a really good option because we can load those areas up, give them challenge without a huge amount of stress. The same thing if you've recently had like an ankle issue. This can be a good option because it takes pressure out of the ankles. So it can build up endurance and tolerance in these areas. So if you are limited from pain, this can be good. Now, how do you do this? Very, very simple. You're going to get on a treadmill, put the incline anywhere from like 5 to 10%. You're going to face backwards and you're going to slowly walk. That's about it. For this particular workout, I wouldn't really recommend it as a full session. I would never program, say, doing a full backwards walking session for a mountaineer. But I would typically do this as like maybe 10 minutes at the start of a session, maybe as part of your warm-up during strength training, or 10 minutes at the end of a session, just getting a nice quad pump at the end or whatever. So that's typically how I would use it. Now, a couple of tips on this just to be aware of. Number one, while it does take pressure out of the knees and ankles and can be good for that, this does put more pressure through the Achilles than flat walking or normal incline walking or whatever it may be. So if you have Achilles issues, if you have a history of that, be wary of that. And number two, I know a lot of people will often sort of say, hey, this is really good for training descents. It doesn't really line up for mountaineers. If you are trying to get ready and prepare your body for descents, backwards walking on the incline treadmill can be good for that quads and calf endurance. It's not going to exactly replicate descents, so don't fall into that trap. Now, for progression, each week I would either add just a couple of minutes of this or add a bit of extra incline. Very, very simple. So those are our walking-based workouts. Now let's get into our running-based. Workout number 5 is the long run. So this is just pretty much the same as our sort of long walk. The idea behind this is if you are doing long runs as part of your training and you can't get outdoors to do that, well, we're going to replace that with a long treadmill run. Aim for this is just to develop aerobic capacity. How we're going to do it? Very simple. Put the treadmill on relatively low incline. You don't want to load this one up too high. So anywhere from like 2 to maybe 6%. Just run at that low intensity, nose breathing zone 2 for a steady to state. Similar issues with this as the walking version, boredom. You will get bored with this. It's not as much fun as running outside. So maybe put a TV show on, a movie on again. And similar issue for the incline. Sometimes just hitting that same incline for the entire time isn't super comfortable. So just vary it as you go through. For progression for this, I'd recommend just add time each week. So 5 minutes each week until you hit the limit where you're like, I am just bored out of my mind. I can't do this anymore. And then from there, maybe you could either add some extra average incline, so more incline through the session while keeping that low intensity, or you can even introduce some pickups where you kind of do little 10-second periods to just ramp up the speed, just let the legs turn over and then pull it in. So they're not sprints, but they're kind of like ramping up. So any of those options work. Workout number 6, aerobic power intervals. So this is a running workout again. You can't really do this walking. You've probably heard me talk about this a lot. I love this workout structure for mountaineers. I love this interval structure for mountaineers. And I find it's a really, really, really valuable session and really beneficial session, specifically for improving breathing on steep climbs and helping us just manage fatigue during tougher sections on the mountain where we have to sustain a bit of a higher output. I just find it's a really, really good way of introducing higher intensity for a mountaineer into their training in a way that's much more relevant than a lot of people may have a history of in the traditional HIIT approach, where they may do 45 seconds quick and 15 seconds slow, or 20 seconds quick, 10 seconds slow. That stuff, not super relevant for mountaineers, but these aerobic power intervals, very, very, very beneficial. So for this particular workout, we get a good warm up, run for like 5-10 minutes, get the body churning over. Then we put the incline on, small incline, maybe 2 to 5%. Doesn't have to be high, but we don't want it on the flat. We want it, 2 to 5%. Then we're going to run quick for 3 minutes. Push the speed, really run quick. After 3 minutes, pull the speed back. You're just going to walk for 1.5 minutes. Very, 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 very slow. Just catch your breath and repeat. Now, tips for this workout. For this particular workout, it is a high intensity workout. So feel free to push the speed. For that running, 3 minutes, we want to ramp up the speed and really, really challenge ourselves. We don't want to go so fast that after 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 50 seconds, we cook out and we have to slow down. But as quick as you can sustain for those 3 minutes is kind of what we're aiming for. Next tip is if you do find, okay, as I'm going through this workout, my legs are just burning out too quickly. And I just cannot manage this. And if that happens after a minute or 90 seconds and that holds you back, then just use a lower incline. So you can go all the way down to like 1%. I wouldn't usually say do this on the flat because flat sprinting on the treadmill is not often super comfortable. But yeah, you can bring it down a little bit lower, but see how you go. And then for the rest, the idea for the rest is it is a proper rest. It's not, hey, I'm going to keep up a jog. It's not, hey, I'm going to keep on working hard, but we want a proper rest. So we either want really, really, really slow walking and just concentrate on bringing your breathing up under control, or you can even have like complete rest and just chill out for the 90 seconds. Each week for this workout, as progression, we either want to push a bit quicker and do a quicker speed for those intervals, or just add an extra interval. All right, workout number 7 is incline running. So another running workout, this can be a really nice way of just adding progression into your running. So if you've been doing flat running for a while, you want something a little bit of a change, or if you're like, hey, I wanted to work a bit more endurance on my legs, this can be a good option. To be clear, this is not an option which would replace a pack-loaded incline work session because it's very, very different in regards to developing endurance through running versus heavy pack work. But it can be a good option if you've just been doing lots of running and you want a bit of progression, or maybe you just got a long-term training program, you're sick of pack work, you need a bit of a break for it, or whatever it may be. Now, the way we go about this, very, very simple. Have a bit of a warm-up. Then what we're going to do, we're going to ramp up the incline to kind of moderately high. So usually around about 6 to 10% tends to be okay for this. You can go higher, but most people kind of cook out a bit on that. What we're going to do, we're going to run for 8 minutes at a moderately quick pace. It's not a sprint. It's not just a dawdle, but like 8 minutes or so. Then you're going to walk for 2 minutes and repeat as many times as you want. Now, tips for this is essentially what we are kind of looking at is mainly for this. We're trying to challenge the legs. We're trying to challenge the body. Yes, there will be a cardiovascular challenge, obviously, but we're trying to overload the legs here. So if you feel like, hey, the legs are really just not really getting a challenge and the breathing is just getting out of control, then maybe just adjust the incline and the speed. Maybe ramp up the incline a little bit and reduce the speed a little bit. If you feel like, you get to 4, 5, 6 minutes and your breathing's just getting way out of control, you can't sustain it, then again, maybe slow the pace down so you can hit those 8 minutes or whatever it may be. For progression, each week, either add a higher incline and do each interval at a higher incline, or just extend that running interval out. So maybe do 8 minutes, 8.5 minutes, 9 minutes, for example. Now, the final treadmill incline option is using it as a part of circuit training. Now, this isn't admittedly one I would get many mountaineers doing, but this more falls into people who are kind of doing a long-term training program. And they're like, hey, I need a bit of variation in my training. I'm doing all the basics. I've been doing them for ages. I just need something a little bit different. And if that's you, this can be really good. Using some incline treadmill as part of a circuit can be really, really useful. Now, I talked previously about circuit training for mountaineers in a previous episode, so if you're interested in this topic, go check that out because there's a lot of information in there. But one of my main recommendations for this is if you are looking at circuit training, we don't want to take the approach where in the typical world of fitness, where you'll do 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off and go around a circuit. Not super relevant. Instead, we can get some really, really good benefits from circuit training if we're using long intervals for each circuit of the station. So each station of your circuit, you may do 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 minutes of an exercise and then move around. Essentially, using the treadmill here can be a really good option, whether you've just got like a treadmill at home, whether you're doing this at a gym or whatever it may be. So a simple circuit may look like something like, okay, I'm going to do 4 minutes of incline running. I'm going to hop on the treadmill, ramp up the incline, run for 4 minutes. Then I'm going to hop off, I'm going to rest for a minute. Then I'm going to do 4 minutes of suitcase carry, where I'll carry a heavy dumbbell in one hand for a minute, then swap to another hand for a minute, then back to the first hand for a minute, then back to the other, and accumulate 4 minutes of that. Then I might have a minute rest. Then I might hop back on the treadmill and do another 4 minutes. Then I might have a minute rest. Then I might do 4 minutes of box step ups. Then I'll have a really long rest and I'll repeat that circuit or whatever it may be. As you can see, you can get really, really, really creative here, but it can be a decent option here. Now, a couple of tips if you are going to be doing this. Number one is one thing you will run into is if you're using treadmill incline work as a circuit, it can be really annoying because if you turn off the treadmill, then you have to turn it back on, then it has to adjust the incline, you have to bring it back up. It can be just really, really frustrating. So a couple of options here is if you are doing that and the treadmill's tapping around, doing all that stuff, either once you're in your rest period and you're ready to get on the treadmill, just get on it straight away, start figuring out the incline while you're resting and then start up. Or some people do this, and I would only ever say this if you're 100% confident that you're going to remember you've done this and there's no other chance of anyone else stepping onto it, but you can leave the treadmill running in the sense of like instead of saying stop on the treadmill, just leave it on the incline, leave it running at a slow speed. That way you can just step back onto it and then ramp up the speed. Again, only do that if there's no one else around because I have seen some accidents with that, which you don't want. Now for progression for this, if you were doing this each week, you could either add a length of each interval. So you could do week 1, 4-minute intervals, or 4 minute each station in your circuit. Week 2, 4.5, week 3, 5 minutes, and so forth. Or you could even just say, you know what, on the treadmill, I'm just going to increase the incline. All the other stuff I'll keep the same, but the incline I'll bump up on the treadmill. Pretty simple. Now, there's 8 simple treadmill incline workouts for mountaineers. A lot of that stuff is kind of common sense, but hopefully there's a few different options in there and a few points of nuance which can help mountaineers using this. Now, final points, I just want to sort of wrap up this episode before I get to the end. Treadmill incline workouts can be great for mountaineers as needed. They get a bad rap from people, but as a necessity around weather, around practicality, they can be really good options. So use them if you need. But just keep in mind, treadmill incline workouts are not going to replicate the uneven, undulating, and unpredictable nature of the trail or of the mountains. So at some point in your preparations, you need outdoor hiking. You need to be hitting the trail, getting that time with the pack, getting that time with whatever footwear you're using, getting that exposure. If you're getting close to a specific climb and the weather sucks, yes, you can do some stuff on the treadmill, but you still need to get out there and deal with the weather if you're close. Number 2, treadmill incline work will not replicate descents. So again, as you're getting closer to a climb, you do need to get some type of exposure to natural hills or stairs. If you can't, if there's just no absolute possibility of doing that, then there are other options of preparing you for descents through other areas of training, but just know this isn't going to prepare you for descents, and backwards walking on the treadmill isn't going to do that either. And then finally, just be aware as a mountaineer, unless you have a super, super high incline treadmill, it's usually not going to be steep enough to properly prepare your legs for the mountains. So we do want to complement this with some type of Stairmaster work if you got access to that, a Jacob's ladder if you got access to that, or at the very least some box step sessions where you're doing extended step ups. And then of course, natural stairs and hills where you can. So just keep that in mind. Treadmill stuff can be great in the off season. It can be great when you're far out from the trip. They can even be great as you're leading into a trip, as long as you are getting some of that outdoor exposure as well. So just don't forget that. I have seen mountaineers fall into that trap. But all in all, hopefully that just gives a little bit of a insight, a little bit of direction, a little bit of nuance to some of these workouts. Treadmill can be great. Don't feel bad about using it. Incorporate it where you can, and it can serve you very, very well. So with that being said, last thing I will sort of say is, if you are a mountaineer and you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, you know what? I struggle to train in the summer, or I struggle to train in the winter, or you know what, I just like to have gym-based cardio sessions, or I just want a little bit of help putting together my training and making sure I'm getting a well-rounded approach to my training for mountaineering. If you fall into any of those categories, I would love to chat with you. If you want to find out a little bit more about my online personal training for mountaineers, you can go to summitstrength.com.au/mountaineer. On that page, there's a big video, talks a lot about our programs. And if it sounds like something you want to learn more about, there's a link on that page. You can book a free call with our team. We can have a chat, learn about you, your mountaineering, your training, and see if and how we may be able to help you out. So if you want to check out more, go to summitstrength.com.au/mountaineer, and we can take it from there. So with that being said, thanks so much for listening. Hope you have a lovely day, and we'll talk to you very, very soon. Bye.